to the ball game.
Good morning, and welcome to Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Today, as we get you rolling in the world of sports in just a flash. And so we're coming up on the end of the Major League Baseball season, just less than 50 games to go for most teams. So we'll begin these days off catching you up to what's going on in the world of baseball as far as the pennant races are concerned. Last night, Braves over the Reds 3-2. The Brewers sweep a doubleheader from the Cubs 4-2 and 6-3, and other games of note. The Blue Jays, they split their doubleheader with the Angels. The Cardinals beat the Pirates. The Phillies, their winning streak is over. Los Angeles Dodgers 5-0 winners in Philadelphia. A's over the Indians, and then you got the Rays coming roaring back down 4-1. They score 7 unanswered runs to win the game 8-4. And Houston won. The White Sox lose. The Yankees lose to the Royals. Giants, they beat Arizona and Texas. And the Mariners, the Rangers are the winners. So what does that mean in the big picture? It means that when you're looking at the standings, waking up this morning, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 5 games in front of Boston, all alone in first place. Yankees are 7 back. The Toronto Blue Jays are 7.5 back. White Sox comfortably in front of Cleveland by 10.5 games. Houston is now only 2 games in front of Oakland, as Oakland has gotten one of their patented hot streaks. They've won 5 in a row, 8 of their last 10. Keep an eye on the Oakland A's. In the National League East, the Braves are now just 1 game out of first place behind Philadelphia. The Mets are 2 out. The Mets game was suspended. They're going to finish that game up today at 4:00, beginning in the second inning. And they will play a doubleheader today. Milwaukee, they are 7 games in front of Cincinnati now. And the NL West, the San Francisco Giants are now 4 in front of the Dodgers, 7 in front of San Diego. And San Diego's better wake up because the Cincinnati Reds are hot on their heels. What does that mean for today? Oh, sorry, real quick for the wild card, because I know a lot of people are locked into the wild card. Oakland has a 1-game lead over Boston. If the season ended today, they would play in Oakland for the 1-game playoff. Behind them is the Yankees and Toronto 2 and 2.5 back, and we won't get into the ones that are far behind. In the National League, the Dodgers would host the Padres if it ended today. They're 3 games in front of San Diego. As far as wild card is concerned, Cincinnati is 4.5 back. The rest are really a long shot. So there's no sense of getting into those numbers. If I didn't say your team, you better be focused on the division. All right. Today, we're going to have a lot of big action. Of course, we get early games because it is Wednesday, and Wednesday always means you have a couple of early games. Today, you've got quite the slate. At 1:00, White Sox and Twins. 2:00, Rockies and Astros. And then the Yankees finish off their series against the Royals. They have not announced a starter yet, but they do have Brady Singer going to the mound for Kansas City. So Singer has been good. He's been bad. The Yankees cannot take him lightly, that's for sure. The Marlins are at the Padres at 4:00. Weathers is going up against Alcantara. Alcantara is a very good pitcher for Miami. They better get it together. The Padres, because they are free falling right now. And I know they said they have a little bit of a comfortable lead for that wild card, but the Reds are playing really good baseball. That game last night with Atlanta, I felt like that the Reds actually outplayed Atlanta, but there was a couple of innings where the Braves got on them and got a few runs and Cincinnati dropped the game. But if you miss that game, Sonny Gray pitched an incredible baseball game. Dodgers and Phillies back at it tonight. It's David Price versus Gibson. So you got to figure that the Phillies have the upper hand. Gibson has been incredible this year, 8-3 with a 2.79 ERA. Price has been solid himself, 4-1 with a 3.53 ERA, but he doesn't tend to go very deep into games. Marcus Stroman will be on the mound today at 7:00 for the Mets. And it looks like they're going to put probably Rich Hill on the mound for the Mets in the early game, the one that was suspended. By the way, that game going into the top of the second, the Nationals are up 3-1, but you've got 8 innings to go. So a lot of, and I believe there was one man on and nobody out, I believe is what was going on with that. So Rich Hill will toe the rubber for the Mets. You've got the Blue Jays and Angels tonight. And then only other game of real consequence would be D-backs, Giants. Gausman goes to the Hill. All right. Couple of other big news and notes before we have to jet on out of here. First of all, the Boston Celtics signed Dennis Schrader to a 1-year, $5.9 million deal. He's a free agent point guard, so he's going to fill the void of some of the losses that the Celtics have had at guard. He's not expected to be a star, but he is expected to have a pretty good amount of playing time. Remember, they lost Kemba Walker and they lost Fournier. Fournier signed with the Knicks, and then Kemba Walker was traded to OKC, but he's signing with the Knicks. So there you have that. The coaches poll in college football came out yesterday, and this is what it looks like. You got Alabama ranked number 1. To nobody's surprise, they got all the first place votes. Clemson was number 2, and Oklahoma 3, Ohio State 4. Unfortunately, that feels like that's the playoffs every single year, and it gets a little stale for college football. So no matter what ESPN tries to tell you, this is great. We get the matchups, we get the big. It's terrible for college football. It would be much more exciting to see some new blood in there. Hopefully we get that. Who could be some of that new blood? Number 5 is Georgia, and 6 is Texas A&M. Notre Dame, that's another old one that's in there all the time. They always get drummed. They are number 7. And Iowa State, that is a team that I've got my eye on this year. Iowa State, they start out number 8, as well as North Carolina, who's number 9, and they are a sneaky team that could end up in the ACC championship game. And trust me, Clemson will not walk over North Carolina if they run into them. Cincinnati rounds out the top 10, and then you got the Gators at 11, LSU 13. You have USC at 14. The Hurricanes are at 16. They'll play Alabama to start it all off in the Chick-fil-A kickoff classic. I believe that's 3:30 Eastern on September 4th. And you've got Texas at 19, some Big Ten teams. 17 was Indiana, 18 Iowa, and 20 Penn State. And that pretty much does it. One more SEC team in there. Ole Miss sneaks in at number 25. Coastal Carolina, they are back in the top 25, and they're starting number 24 off to start the season. All right, let's go ahead and put this date in history, as we have on this date, and it is hard to believe this is 70 years ago to the day. 70 years ago to the day. On this date in history, WCBS TV televised the very first baseball game broadcasted in color. A Dodgers 8-1 victory over the Braves in the first game of a twin bill. But the importance was it was the first televised color game. Now, I believe this took place on a Saturday afternoon. And Brooklyn's announcers were the great Red Barber and Connie Desmond. They provided the play-by-play commentary for the Ebbets Field contest, and Warren Spahn was actually on the hill in that game. Who was Red Barber? If you're not familiar with him, he is one of the greatest broadcasters of all time. He was actually born in Tallahassee, Florida, which I know that is a weird thing to think, that he is born in Tallahassee and ends up broadcasting ball games for Brooklyn. And he had a Southern cadence. It was not like he tried to hide his southern accent. Excuse me, southern accent. But they absolutely loved him up there. They called him the old redhead, and he was calling play-by-play across 4 decades. He started off with the Reds, then he went to the Brooklyn Dodgers for 15 years. Then following that up, he went to the New York Yankees for another 13, finishing up in 1966, where he retired after just over 30 years of broadcasting. Red passed away at the age of 84, 1992, and the book that was written about him was one of the greatest books I've ever read, Tuesdays with Red. It was a great book where it entails a local public radio station where Red Barber came on every Tuesday to talk the world of sports back in his hometown of Tallahassee. So there you have that, the great Red Barber, never to be forgotten. And on this date, 70 years ago, the first colored television game. Before that, there were games done in black and white. And if you look at the video, they're not that impressive. But what it led to was, of course, cinematic and television history. Because when you first start broadcasting the first games in color on television, the first baseball games, that led to very shortly after the enormous popularity of the National Football League on television. I've always said the reason why football took off in America was because of television and television alone. The game of football is more cinematic than any other sport televised. I'd say baseball's number 2, but football by far is number 1, because there's a drama to when you see the ball thrown from the quarterback and you don't see the outcome until the camera is panned. There's something about that, and it sets up perfectly. Basketball is kind of a dull sport on television. Live, it's phenomenal. Hockey is ridiculously boring on television. Live and in person, it's great. It's one of the best things you'll ever see in your life. But football became king because of television. It all started 70 years ago when baseball, who was king at the time, because baseball is the best sport on radio, and radio was the king of sport at the time. Or, excuse me, radio made baseball the king of sport at the time, because listening to a baseball broadcast, there's still nothing like that, because you get the break in between the action. You get the conversations between the broadcasters. It's inviting. You put football on the radio, there's too much going on. Basketball, hockey, they're constantly having to keep you up to date what's going on in the field. Baseball has that break, the 20-30 second break. So there you have that. Baseball and sports history began today, 70 years ago. Have a great one. Take yourself out to the ball game, and every once in a while just think of old Red, because Red Barber kind of started it all.
Take me out to the ball